Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and singletons of the world over. Where would it be good to know exactly how unpopular you are with the opposite sex compared to with your workmates and the rest of your family for that matter? Well, luckily for us, somebody invented Valentine's Day, our favourite annual humiliation. Thankfully, however, the run up to what they call Valentine's Day is thankfully a lot less toxic than, let's say, Christmas, because in years gone by, the run up to Christmas has just meant things are going to get more expensive. It's going to get more expensive to buy certain things, and sometimes it none off saps your strength when you feel like you're granted liberty for all of one day. Thankfully, Valentine's Day doesn't really have any of those sorts of pressures and limitations. However, it is still a reminder that, guess what? Well, let me give you a bit of an insight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm 28 years old, and I have been single throughout my entire life. In fact, I've never even had a girlfriend. I've never even actually been on a date. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It suits the rest of the world just fine. And actually, you know what? It suits me perfectly fine. And I'll tell you exactly why that is. Because to be honest, I don't feel I feel completely indifferent to the idea of actually being in a relationship. Not because I don't want to be in one. It's just because, well, there's too much going on in my life right now for me to either notice, care, or take any sort of interest in it. Now, with that being said, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people the world over who are devilishly hungry and reckless with misery for the thought of being alone. And this is where that very grey area between being single and being desperately lonesome really comes into place. Because you have guys like me who are perfectly fine and sound at the thought of being single. And believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, I am not even remotely considered the idea of being in a relationship, period, to be honest. Because, listen, I'm not particularly interested at this point in getting married, and I'm not particularly this interested either in having any children. Not because I don't want either of those things, it's just because, well, for the former, getting married, if I'm going to get married, I want it to be the single greatest event of both our lives, because we're talking about the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. You need to make that about as profound and as special as humanly possible. Yeah, listen, I'm not much in terms of like wedding plannings and stuff like that, but I understand the point of it, and I think it would be a bit of an insult if I did not go all out, so to speak. And in the latter's case, well, being a dad is an incredibly large step. It means that whether I have one, two, three kids, they will be my legacy till the very day that I die. And actually, to be honest, when we're talking about legacy, quite a lot of people that I went to school with, I think about 70 to 80% of them are now dads. I went to an all-boys school, you see, which I think that's probably one of the other reasons why I never really like had much of an interest in like dating and stuff like that. Is because going to an all-lads school for 7 years, I literally, honestly, there was a time where I genuinely forgot what girls were actually like. So you didn't really pay much attention to them. Also because I had every member of staff, everyone breathing down my neck, emphasizing the importance of GCSEs and A levels. In about 10 years' time, even saying stuff like that will seem like a very distant memories. They'll call them T levels, or they'll call them T star levels in about 10 years' time, as far as I'm concerned. Right. But as I was saying, that's a big step, because honestly, one of the few lads that I went to school with, he became a dad shortly after we finished our GCSEs, all the way back in 2014. and that's great. You know what? He's made, and you know what? He's incredibly happy, and he's still married. I think he only recently got married a couple of years ago, and guess what? Their relationship is really good, and guess what? He works, he puts food on the table, he's there for his daughter. You know what? It's as simple as that. And don't think for 1 second people have to start meeting my standards or anything like that. That's, of course, that's just ridiculous. But as I mentioned before, again, the thought of, having kids it's the sort of thing that I'm actually almost debating whether or not I would ever be considered responsible enough to actually have kids, because you think you're up to the task, and then, trust me, all plans go out the window the second something goes wrong, even something incredibly minute. Because again, if we were talking about my son or my daughter, they are my offspring. They are my flesh and blood, and believe you me, if even so much as a single hair of their heads was harmed, believe you me, I would literally bring the house would collapse. Believe you me. I think honestly I would be very, very defensive and incredibly always be there to stand up for my kids. Maybe I am actually a bit more responsible the more I think about it, because, well, as they say, you know what, they're supposed to come before you, and believe you me, my parents certainly put me before them many, many times. So yeah, that just seems to make sense. Mind you, with that being said, having children, the world isn't going to end just because the world doesn't get to witness the spawn of my loins anytime soon. And it's not exactly a looming disaster for mankind if I actually do produce offspring. Because let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, and of course this is the funniest thing to admit, is that via the act of actually producing any offspring of my own would actually have to involve the physical lovemaking between myself and a woman. And let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, that is not happening anytime soon either. I mean, I'm a man of the world and stuff like that, yeah, obviously. But in terms of, actually going that next step and actually, you know what, yeah, that's I can't see that happening anytime soon. Again, not because I don't think there wouldn't be a woman out there or anything like that, but also because what's the right time or place to do it? Presumably indoors, in bed. Trust me, I am not conceiving my children outside. Glad it's the things you don't say, ladies and gentlemen, is the things you'll live to regret. I'll keep telling myself that. But yeah, it's just one of those things I can't really get my head around yet, because as I said, there may or may not be a good time for it, but then again, there's never really a great time to do anything on this earth, so guess what? You have to do it right now. You only have one life, ladies and gentlemen, to live, and you know what? You just you crack on and you get on with it. With that being said, I have told myself, and literally only myself, that if I don't have any kids of my own by the time I reach 40, I'm literally not even going to thought of trying. And it's nothing to do with anything else, because my dad had me when he was 39 years old, and he had my youngest brother when he was 42 and stuff like that. But that doesn't really play into anything whatsoever. My cutoff point is the age of 40. And honestly, I think that's I don't know exactly why. It's just, well, if by the time I reach 80 I haven't done bungee jumping yet, it's not gonna happen. So why fight it, or why try? Also, as I mentioned earlier, I'll probably be too swamped down in work and things going on in my head and stuff like that to entertain the idea. However, that's enough about me for 1 second. But what about other people? What about the sort of people there who are desperate to start? In fact, let's not talk about starting a family. What about just wanting to feel comfortable in the world without having to be in a relationship? Well, I think the first step for stuff like that is, well, do you respect yourself? Or rather, do you even like yourself? I think when you start, when it comes to questions of relationships and stuff like that, everything, you know what, it all starts at the top. It starts about what do you think about it, or rather, what do you want or know, or why, or when, or how, when it comes to stuff like that. And when you ask these sorts of questions, then guess what? However you make the next step, guess what? You have got to be the one to do it. You've got to be yourself. That tired old chestnut, but you know what? There's a reason why. Because guess what? The second you start, by the time you get yourself out into the real world, I don't think it will take too long for people to realize or to catch on whether or not you're being truthful and being yourself, or trying to wing it to impress somebody. Yeah, I've never had to do that. I've never had any issues whatsoever with being myself. Some may argue that's entirely the problem, but nah, not really. Again, you just you learn you crack and you get on with it. It's a much more simpler process when you think about it. And hey, you know what? Sometimes the most basic and sound principles are the most sound of them all. What do you guys reckon? But, and because I have no other way of like trying to bring this to an end proper, I will share with you guys a little bit of a story. When I was about, I won't say how old I was. I was sort of like coming towards the end of school anyway. Well, that's around about that time. And somebody that I did share several classes with, we knew each other vaguely. We didn't really interact all that much. And I don't exactly know what really came about with all this, but he started asking me questions about relationships. And I don't remember exactly what face I pulled, but it was a very, very surprising thing, because when I say it's the sort of person you would have suspected would have asked me about relationships, I really do mean it. Because what did he think that I knew about relationships? And he there was just things he wanted to know, because I think the questions revolved around, he wasn't exactly certain about how he wanted to like open up to his girlfriend at the time, and he just sort of was just sort of out there, because he didn't really seem to know what to do, or rather what exactly he thought his girlfriend was going to say when he was going to open up. And the way that I put it, I just told him, look, just to be honest with her, and guess what? If she understands, and if she wants to play, see you halfway, and because I think she would respect him a lot more just for being honest. Because guess what? Sometimes opening up and being honest is an incredibly difficult thing to do, and it's not the sort of thing that even the bravest people have issues with, because, well, sometimes you don't exactly know how the other half is going to take it. Also, because sometimes being honest and truthful does not always result in, well, hearing things that they want to hear. We all know what that sounds like, but that's just being truthful, and that's sort of how it is. I will say, however, ladies and gentlemen, in years gone by, and I suppose there is a little bit extra I can add to this video, is that I've questioned myself over the last couple of years about what I really think makes a woman attractive. And there's loads of variables to a question like this. If you want to talk physically, if you want to talk about mentally, if you want to talk maybe from a financial point of view, if you want to talk about anything you like, I don't really feel like there's a wrong answer, because, well, there are some immediate wrong answers, and believe you me, we do not need to start talking about those. Obviously, I mean, come on, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I will say, if you had to ask me about what I think, in my eyes, makes a woman really, really attractive, like it's the sort of thing that makes my mind go, and just it causes my eyebrows to prick up, and I'm like, hello, what's going on here? Well, I'll tell you exactly what it is, and prepare yourself. This is going to be a really, really surprise some of you guys out there, because for me, what makes a woman in my eyes extremely attractive is one word: courage. Yeah, believe in me, ladies and gentlemen, courage, in my opinion, is what makes a woman really, really attractive in my eyes. And you want to know why that is? Because it's not easy to be courageous. Being courageous means doing things that you are sometimes afraid of. And sometimes it's very scary to do certain things that you feel you are completely out of your depth to do, that you feel like you can't do physically or mentally or whatever it may be. But it is sort of when you pull your socks up and you get on with it. And guess what? Even if you suck at something, guess what? You dared to try in the first place. That's called courage, ladies and gentlemen. It's probably also called bravery, but I quite like the word courage. It's the sort of word that doesn't get thrown around enough nowadays. But that, for me, is the sort of thing that makes somebody instantly attractive in my eyes. Because I know exactly what it means, ladies and gentlemen, to be a coward and to not feel that you are brave enough to do something spectacular or even relatively mundane. And it takes an awful lot of courage to face your demons, to face your fears, and to stand up and say, I will do it. Courage, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it takes. And with all that being said and done, maybe that's the sort of thing we could all do with a little bit more. Have a bit more courage, a little bit more belief in ourselves. Maybe that's the secret to true intimacy, ladies and gentlemen. To be brave, to look somebody in the eye and say, I love you. Because quite frankly, if she or he can't say it back, maybe they don't love you in the same way you love them, or maybe even they're afraid to be courageous. You tell me. But with all that being said and done, I'll see you guys again next time. Thank you.